My world shattered with just 4 words from my soon-to-be ex-wife, Julie. It wasn't a dramatic scene. Her words were as casual as ordering a meal. Unlike Old Yeller coaxing tears from Travis Coates, there were none from me. I felt like Steve Carell's character at the start of Crazy, Stupid Love. Julie had packed my belongings by the time I came home, at least showing some consideration. I'm Steve Miller, early 40s, with Julie, still stunning after all these years. Parenthood treated her well. Her workout routine kept her fit while I accumulated a spare tire and a salt and pepper goatee. Her words cut deep. Steve, I love you, but I'm not in love with you. We've drifted apart, especially now the kids are gone. It's time to stop pretending. Our journey began with 3 at the altar: Julie, me, and our unexpected love child, Emily. Sacrificing my college dreams, I worked tirelessly for us. Despite challenges, our love grew, and Josh completed our family. 10 years ago, I stabilized our finances, earning a degree online while working full-time. I didn't cheat in the traditional sense. My dedication was to our family's security, not nights out. Consulting life fluctuates, but my loyalty to Julie never wavered. No, if there was a mistress, it would be my work. I've been wedded to my job, spending long hours and traveling extensively while my wife, Julie, took care of our children at home. My commitment to providing them with the best meant missing many family events, though not by choice. Financial pressures, especially for college expenses, compelled me to prioritize work over personal moments. I'm not passionate about my role as a human resources consultant, akin to John C. McGinley's character in Office Space. My job involved optimizing organizations' workforce sizes, often advocating for reinvesting savings into employees, despite corporate emphasis on cost-cutting. The disconnect between viewing employees as assets versus costs troubled me deeply. For instance, uncovering inefficiencies like unnecessary report printing, which led to job eliminations, weighed heavily on my conscience. Despite my job's challenges, my family's love and reliance on me kept me going. Arguments with Julie over finances, exacerbated by my reluctance to take a lower-paying job with less travel, were frequent. Her potential to work to offset our financial strain was unthinkable to me, given her role as the children's primary caregiver and chauffeur, maintaining their lifestyle expectations. During our marital crisis, as I pleaded for counseling, Julie's response was firm and cold, dismissing the idea with a smile that felt more like a betrayal than reassurance. Her practical approach to divorce, framed as a fresh start in our youth, left me reeling. I felt utterly powerless, struggling to comprehend the impending loss. I wanted to collapse, to plead desperately with Julie not to leave me. Julie, I can quit my job, find something local. We can make it work. I hate being away all the time. Please, let's revive what we once had. My pleas and refusal to accept the inevitable strained Julie. Her frustration was palpable. Steve, you're sounding weak. You need to toughen up. A real man faces his fate head-on. Julie's dismissive words hit deep, invoking memories of my own past rhetoric about responsibility and maturity. Despite my attempts to hold onto our relationship, her resolve seemed firm. As she reacted, her expression betrayed a hint of regret, realizing the gravity of her decision. She tried to speak as I gathered my belongings, preparing to leave. Her cries and appeals through the car window were once enough to melt me, but not now. As I drove away, her tears seemed insincere, akin to Othello's description of feigned sorrow. Seeking solace, I ended up at an Irish pub my friends often praised on social media. Amidst the gloom, a familiar voice interrupted my thoughts. It was Heather Wilson, my personal assistant, concerned about my daughter's distress and my well-being. Her sympathy briefly touched me, despite my bitter mood. Glancing at my phone, I saw missed calls from Emily and someone else. Disinterested in hearing justifications, I focused on the amber liquid in my glass, contemplating my reflection. The irony struck me, the karma I now faced. The professional decisions I made, affecting countless lives, now mirrored in my personal life as I faced being right-sized out of my role as husband and father. Heather suggested getting a hotel room to sleep it off, hoping for clarity in the morning, a gesture of kindness amidst the turmoil. I wrestle with conflicting emotions, hating myself for wanting to hurt Julie, the woman I love. Heather managed to steer me from the bar to a hotel, amused by my minimal bar tab for a drink I never touched. Drinking to numb my pain wasn't effective. I despised Southern Comfort's taste. Sleep evaded me, replaying scenes from The Shining in my mind. In my version, our suburban McMansion was the eerie setting, Julie as a terrified Wendy Torrance. The unsettling dream included my son on a big wheel and my daughter's haunting chant of forever and ever. The next day, I sought a heart-to-heart with Julie, urged by Heather to salvage our 2-decade marriage. Discovering Julie absent at home, I tracked her down to the gym. She looked radiant in her workout attire, seemingly unaffected by our marital crisis. Entering the gym, I noticed Julie engaged with a muscular man who lacked tact. His crude remarks and physical familiarity with Julie stung deeply. He mockingly introduced himself as Tweedledum, highlighting his physique. His companion, Tweedledick, received Julie's affection with an intimate kiss, further shattering my heart. Goodness, they should probably find a private place for that, don't you think, buddy? Teased the man beside me. Their actions were practically a public display of sexual intimacy. It's now evident that our growing apart isn't the sole reason for my divorce. The alpha male in me wanted to charge over and reclaim my wife, but the rational side knew I'd be physically overpowered by those two without them breaking a sweat. For a fleeting moment, I almost wished for the physical pain to complement the emotional anguish. Oh, and here comes her boy. Man, I'd love to be the guy who got that. When it rains, it pours. I hoped my son would defend our family honor. I wished he'd be offended by his mother's behavior, not to fight my battles, but to see these men tearing apart his family. He didn't. My son wasn't into team sports. He faced ridicule in school for missed passes and strikeouts. When he chose wrestling and weightlifting, I was proud, thinking he was overcoming bullies. Now I see those influences shaped his decision more. I only needed my daughter to complete our family's betrayal. With a defeated tone, I replied to my foolish friend, "No, you don't." And with that, I walked out. What use was a fight? I'd already lost, unaware there was even a battle. The universe seemed to know the karmic reckoning I faced. As I started my car, Fleetwood Mac's Gold Dust Woman played on the radio. Well, did she make you cry? Make you break down? Shatter your illusions of love. And, now tell me, is it over now? Do you know how to pick up the pieces and go home? It's been 2 years since the divorce. Maybe I was having a midlife crisis. Or maybe I was just selfish, reluctant to give up my single woman's lifestyle while my ex-husband worked hard to support us. The divorce was relatively smooth. I got the house and equity, he kept his pension and miles. What I didn't expect was when I sought spousal support, his lawyer presented evidence of my infidelity, not just with Rick, but with Rick and Ed together, even in front of our son at the gym. How he got those photos, I'll never know. Steve was tactful. He didn't want to label our split due to adultery, but he sure didn't want to pay alimony to his whore of an ex-wife. That was left to my lovers. Looking back, I'm sure that's what he was thinking, and apparently, the judge agreed. Steve did continue to support our children's college expenses until they finished. Emily was 20, Josh 18, no child support needed anymore. Initially, my life felt empty once Steve completed his degree and began working as a human resources consultant. He was often away during the week, home only on weekends, which were supposed to be the good times. Even when he was home due to slow business, tension filled the air. Every dollar spent seemed to spark arguments between us. Thankfully, I had the kids, but they constantly needed me for activities, errands, or resolving fights at home. Balancing both parental roles took its toll, and I grew resentful of Steve's prolonged absences. Don't misunderstand, when Steve was home, he was an exemplary husband. He handled household tasks willingly and even hired help if needed. He never missed a chance to send flowers on special occasions or call to uplift my spirits when I was low. Skype helped bridge the distance, allowing us to see each other regularly despite his absence. Yet, for me, it wasn't enough then. Steve suggested I join a gym, initially sparking frustration. Did he think I needed to lose weight? Meanwhile, he neglected his own health, often eating fast food on business trips. However, he explained that he saw how isolated I was and understood I needed adult interaction, not just the role of a mother. He knew me well, a talent that made him excel in human resources. Sometimes, I wish I had his perceptiveness. Perhaps things would be different now if I did. At first, going to the gym felt daunting, surrounded by fit and attractive women. I felt out of place, like I was under scrutiny. Yet, Rick and Ed stepped in, not just gym regulars but mentors who helped me with a workout plan. Initially, I feared they'd lose interest once I improved, but they celebrated my progress with genuine joy. As I shed pounds and gained confidence, I wanted to share my transformation with Steve over Skype. However, his demeanor grew increasingly somber and despondent. His melancholy affected me deeply, to the point where I avoided calling him, unwilling to hear about his bad days. Being around Rick and Ed all week, their impressive physiques were certainly appealing. So, when Steve returned home, appearing out of shape and unappealing, I had no interest in him. He inevitably sought intimacy, and I played my role as a wife, delivering performances that could have earned me Oscars. Meg Ryan had nothing on me. Part of me was relieved he lacked the stamina for more than one round. I couldn't bear it. Luckily, everyone looks the same in the dark. Reflecting now, if I had realized how deeply Steve's job was affecting him or how my emotional neglect hurt him, things might have been different. But I was absorbed in my own world. Rick's transformation into Rick the Dick didn't help matters. His physique was like a work of art, surpassing even Michelangelo's David in one aspect. Rick took advantage of my vulnerability with Steve away, and I let myself be drawn in. His interest in me heightened the thrill, and it wasn't a one-time affair. Rick pursued me relentlessly, at the gym's locker rooms, even at home when the kids were out. His insatiable sex drive was intoxicating, making me feel alive, young, and free, a sensation I hadn't experienced since marrying Steve. Ed, Rick's friend, seemed aware of our affair and acted childishly. Rick urged me to be kinder to Ed, leading to more encounters where Ed's physical presence was overwhelming. While Rick knew how to use his size and length for ecstasy, Ed simply filled me in a way that left me sore. They each had their strengths in bed, but neither wanted intimacy afterward. If I could, I'd slap some sense into my foolish past self. "It's funny," a coworker exclaimed, "you should see the flowers Sam got." It's ironic, throughout my marriage, Steve urged me to find a job for extra income, complaining about his own work. I dismissed him harshly, telling him to toughen up and stop complaining. Now divorced, I work full-time as a clerk in a billing office. Instead of dismissing him, I should have encouraged him to channel his frustrations at the gym, the same way I unwind after a long work week. From her mysterious lover, teased another voice. I resented Sam, not for anything she did, but because she was 10 years younger with a slim figure. What irked me more was her subtle awareness of her attractiveness without flaunting it, a constant reminder of aging. She amused herself by sharing chocolates from admirers, watching others indulge while she stayed trim. It felt like a deliberate game to make everyone else look less appealing. Unable to resist a jab, I interjected, "So, when do we get to meet this supposed Romeo? We only see photos of you two." My envy was palpable, especially with the bouquet of roses in a crystal vase on her desk. Every weekend, Sam and her boyfriend seemed to embark on exciting adventures, kayaking down rivers, exploring waterfalls, or attending concerts at famous venues. "Oh, come on," Sam responded playfully, brushing off my dig. "He's just camera shy. He's self-conscious about his appearance. Bald by choice, you know." I couldn't help but scoff cynically, but she continued, "But paired with his goatee and his fit physique." She blushed, clearly smitten. "Long stem roses again," exclaimed Helen, always late to the party. She gushed over romantic gestures like Edith from All in the Family, her voice matching Gene Stapleton's pitch perfectly. Sam, ever the smug one, nodded as she read aloud from the card accompanying the roses. "He's planning something special tonight and invites all of you. He's rented the 3rd floor of Merchant's Restaurant on Lower Broad. You're welcome to bring a date, and dinner's on him. And we finally get to meet this mystery man of yours?" I couldn't resist. "Yes, and he's all mine," Sam replied possessively. "Not unless one of us steals him away," quipped a voice from the back, possibly Carrie or Beth. They drop their panties faster than the French drop their rifles. Since my divorce, I hadn't enjoyed a fine dinner. This event at the Merchant was too good to miss. Normally, Steve and I would dine at the Watermark restaurant, where he'd remind me to save room for Tennessee strawberry jam cake. Rick, on the other hand, would criticize me for indulging in the buttermilk icing, concerned about its calories and cost. Finally, I had the chance to show Rick what a real dinner experience was like. I called him once I returned to my desk. "Rick, one of the girls is hosting a party at the Merchant tonight. Her boyfriend rented the 3rd floor, and dinner is provided. Would you like to take me?" I made it clear this wasn't a mere question. "Oh. Sorry, babe. I pulled my quad today. I was planning to relax and ice it down. Why don't you come over and give me a massage? That might help me recover." Typical. All he ever thought about was workouts and bedroom exercises. A nice date to him meant hitting the gym and then rushing home for another session under the covers. If I was lucky, we might end up at Longhorn Steakhouse, where I'd watch him devour a steak in record time. "Come on, Rick. We don't have to stay long. You can meet my friends, and we can finally have a proper dinner with utensils and everything. Please? Can't you do this for me just once? Why don't you take your son with you? I'm sure Josh would love to meet your friends." I knew he was referring to Carrie and Beth, whom I often likened to professionals with a promiscuous streak. It was both a jab and an insult. "You know damn well Josh is in jail for failing to pay child support. You're such an asshole sometimes. And you know how much you love my cock, too." I slammed the phone down in anger. His comments about my son stung. Josh was in jail for neglecting child support, a pattern he learned from Rick and Ed, the same men who treated women callously and tossed him aside. Some even showed up at our door pregnant. Josh couldn't hold a job and never used protection, much like his mentors. I would have asked Emily to join me, but we haven't spoken since the divorce was finalized. While she understood my perspective, she felt Steve and I weren't making enough effort to reconcile. She particularly disliked Rick and Ed, feeling uncomfortable around them, sensing their lingering gazes. That behavior was likely Rick's influence, driven more by his desires than his intellect. Ed, on the other hand, seemed harmless, a loyal follower to Rick's antics. So, I planned to attend the dinner alone, open to whatever the evening might bring. It turned out to be full of surprises. Stepping off the elevator onto the 3rd floor, I almost collided with a man resembling the Marlboro Man, physically fit but not overly muscular like Rick or Ed. He had a rugged appearance, bald by choice with a goatee that enhanced his rugged charm. At first glance, I was sure this was Sam's boyfriend. Yet, when our eyes met, I recognized him as my personal stone-cold Steve Austin. I've never felt more embarrassed and belittled, not because of Steve's presence, but because of my own actions. Here stood this attractive cowboy who was once my husband, the man I often told to cowboy up. And here he was, doing just that. "Julie?" The awkwardness was palpable for both of us. "Steve, you look good. Life treating you well?" I was nervous, trying to make small talk. Part of me hoped his presence was a coincidence, that maybe there was a chance to correct our mistakes. Everyone deserves a second chance, right? He glanced down and then back up with that familiar smile. I wished I could kiss him again. His kisses were unforgettable, making me feel cherished in a way I had taken for granted. Well, things have turned around for me. No longer a consultant, I'm now CEO of a staffing agency here. "No more travel, plenty of time for hiking and enjoying nature," he said, patting his belly. "Got rid of that Dunlap tire. And look at you, still hitting the gym, looking as good as ever." "Well, you know how much I enjoy spending hours at the gym," I replied. Even as the words left my mouth, attempting to lighten the atmosphere with humor about my gym habits, I instantly regretted them. The last thing I wanted Steve to remember was my time at the gym, and worse, my time with Rick and Ed. I mentally berated myself for my thoughtless comment. Maybe it was just my imagination, but I thought I saw Steve glance around, perhaps checking if I was with someone else. Still, he took it in stride. "So what brings you here? Date night?" I asked, trying to steer the conversation away from my slip-up. Steve chuckled lightly and nodded. You could say that. He tapped the pocket of his sports coat, where I caught a glimpse of a small bulge. It was unmistakably the size and shape of a small black velvet box containing an engagement ring. I invited her friends and families to dinner so they could share in the evening's celebration. There were so many things I wanted to say, so many regrets I wanted to undo, to win back the husband I had lost. But the fight was over. The time for reconciliation had passed 2 years ago when I had insisted on divorce. As tears welled in my eyes, I couldn't tell if they were for myself or for Steve, happy that he had found happiness after I left him. He must have interpreted my silence as permission to continue. Julie, I had no idea you would be here. Please know that tonight is not meant to, Steve began earnestly. Quickly, I cut him off, my voice cracking with emotion. No. I understand, Steve. I'm genuinely happy for you. Sam is a very lucky girl. I excused myself quietly and hurried to the ladies' room. As I tried to compose myself, the soft strains of a bittersweet song, originally by Roxette but covered by DHT, filled the restroom. Listen to your heart when he's calling for you. Listen to your heart, there's nothing else you can do. I don't know where you're going, and I don't know why, but listen to your heart before you tell him goodbye. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel not to miss new videos.